So today we're taking a look at the Ferromex SD70ACe, and Ferromex is actually a railroad from Mexico, and this is in the new zebra stripe paint scheme. But anyways, let's get started here in the front. Alright, so on top we have the number boards, 4053, this weird cone thing on the top, I've never seen that before. And then we have the windshield wipers, and the event recorder camera inside. And it's the first time I've seen Athearn use these white line details, and it also comes with a cab interior, you can see the wire hanging inside. Then we have some grab irons scattered throughout, light on the right, some filler hatches on top, nose mounted headlight, and a door to access the cab. Then in the front we have this big red X pattern, some stanchions, and the ditch lights, which actually follow the same pattern design. And at the bottom there are some walkway lights, although it's a bit splotchy. Then below we have a white anti-climber, and a pretty cool zebra stripe plow. Then we have some hoses on the sides, train line hose, and your standard McHenry coupler, and the coupler cut lever on top. And underneath the anti-climber there's actually these MU cable ports, painted silver, and a red cap. And this model does include some spare parts if you do want to include these extra details like the MU cables, or you can just cap it off. So I did add in the red MU cable, I just used CA super glue. It's actually pretty easy to install, and you can see it is off to one side. And there are also holes if you want to add in signing lines, but I didn't do that. Then on the side we have some steps, which does have some warning labels in Spanish. Then here's a look at the side, more printed detail, and a walkway light, which I recently found out is just a regular light bulb. And the steps are see-through etched metal. And around the cab we have this black rubber gasket line for the isolated cab, which reduces noise and vibration. And over here we have the Mexican flag. It's actually surprisingly detailed for how small this is. And the road number 4053. And over here we have the side cab windows with a sunshade at the top, and the side view mirrors on both sides. And there is a ledge under the windowsill. And over here it says Grupo Mexico Transportes, which is the parent company of Ferromex, some molded in details. And the sill is painted white. There actually is a separate layer for the reflective tape, which is also white, but it's cool they added this. And underneath we have the truck, which has nice molded in details, and the printing is actually quite legible. And this is the HTCR radial truck. One thing though, there's a bit of this white paint splatter here, and even a little bit on the wheel. So behind the cab we have the AC inverter cabinet with two long vents on the sides, which are see-through etched metal grates, and there's a warning that you may get electrocuted. Then on top we have this box, some rivets, some tiny lift rings, and a ledge with some treading, a ladder in the back, and the two arrows that lead up to the Ferromex zebra scheme. Here's the profile view of it. It says Ferromex in the middle, and at the bottom we have the fuel tank and this pipe that runs along the side. And we also have details for the fuel height gauge, the fuel fill, the fuel cutoff switch. Although the paint is kind of sloppy, it's really not supposed to look like this. Also on top it says cone fuel, which might mean combined fuel. Then over here we have some more lift rings, some stickers at the bottom and across the back. Maybe it says like don't enter, and there's a see-through etched metal grate, and the dynamic air brake in the back. And we also have the wedge-shaped radiator on top. Then below we have the rear truck. Now let's go check out the back. So in the corner we have some steps that get narrow as they go up, and the stripes are merging in the back. We've got the road numbers, a ladder on the left, grab irons on the sides, vents in the middle, and the Ferromex logo. And the pilot has this red and white chevron striping pattern, and some spare knuckle coupler holders on the sides. Alright, now let's go check out the other side. So over here we have the handbrake wheel with some warning labels in Spanish and English. This is also where they keep the fire extinguisher and the water tank. And they actually painted part of the letters onto the radiator. And below we have the air dryer filter, pretty well detailed. And then next up we have the two air reservoir tanks. And you can see this time they painted the fuel tank details properly. And there's also this oil icon on top. Then moving towards the front, we have this filter on the side, a battery box at the bottom with a step up, and there's two doors on the side, one to access the battery, and there is a small side view mirror, although it's pretty loose. And there's a door to access the cab with a windshield wiper, and from underneath you can see this is where they have the spitter valve, as well as the E-bell. So that's it for the sides, now let's go check out the top. Alright, so on top we have treading on the anti-climber, and they get smoother. And then on the cab roof we have this tube style antenna cover, and I like that they painted the edges silver with rivets. Then behind that we have three lines on top, and some holes for the exhaust, tiny lift rings. Then we have the K5 LLA horn, and the edges slope down. Then next up we have the two fans for the radiator, which if you look at it from above they are see-through, and this silver dynamic brake fan. And on the edge there is a sand filler hatch, and a grab iron. Alright, so now let's go check out the bottom. So here's a look at the front truck. And there is a bit of detail in the front and the back of the fuel tank. And it's pretty interesting that the rear coupler box is painted red just to match up with these stripes. Alright, so now let's compare it to my other SD70ACe from BNSF. Now they're both Athearn Genesis, so they look pretty similar, but if you look at the MU cables. The BNSF ones are much closer together, while Ferromex is wider with a different port. Athearn actually improved in this model by including the white lines inside the cab, which are not present on previous Athearn locomotives, and it also has the grab irons on top of snowplow, which is not present on the BNSF. Now on the roof they do have different styles of sunshades. BNSF is much wider, and the PTC antenna rays are completely different. Also, American locomotives usually have this F for front, but apparently in Mexico they don't care for that. And also if you look at the steps, you can see Ferromex has 4, while BNSF has 5. And if you take a look at the back, we have the handbrake wheels, which on Ferromex is an earlier style with many spokes. Compare that with BNSF, which is newer and only has 3. Also, BNSF has much larger spitter valves than the Ferromex. Now, if you didn't know, the cab roofs on the SD70ACes are removable. They're just held by magnets. And here you can have a closer view of the interior detail. There are 3 seats for the crew, like the engineer, conductor, brakeman, and there is the multi-in control stand and screens. Now, how do they compare? Well, it's actually pretty similar, but if you look at the armrests, you can see the BNSF is a bit chunky. Compared to the newer one, it seems like they refined this process, so that's actually separate. Also, the lighted number boards have the silver coating on it, while on BNSF, it's clear. Now, you might be wondering if these cab roofs are swappable. Nope, they're not. They're actually magnetically opposed. So I also picked up this Athearn Genesis LPG tank car owned by Procor, and it holds 33,000 gallons. But yeah, let's get started here in the front. Alright, so on the end we have the car number, capacity information, and here's a hazmat placard 1075 for liquefied petroleum gas. And above we have this large grab iron railing. It's actually kind of freestanding in the hole. And the walkway grating is see-through on top. And below we have a McHenry coupler, and it's actually a double shelf coupler, which all tank cars are required to have for safety. And there's a couple of cut lever to the side, and a train line hose. We also have stirrup steps in the corners, along with grab irons. Alright, now let's go take a look at the side. And Procor is a leasing company in Canada. Then we have the car number, some more information, plate C, and there's some printing here talking about the brake shoes. And this car does come with rotating bearing caps, which move when the wheels turn. Then across the side we have this railing that goes all the way across, and we also have some vertical FRA safety stripes. Now I should note that this side rod is extremely wavy. And then over here we have a ladder which goes up to the roof, and then on the other side we have some more car information. It's all pretty legible, and another hazmat placard, and in the corner we have an air reservoir tank for the air brake system, as well as the handbrake wheel. And on the other side we have this box which is the control valve, and then here's how the other side looks like. And now let's go take a look at the roof. Alright, so on top we have the car number written on the edge, and we have that ladder that goes up to the walkways, which are photo etched with see-through holes. And on top we have some housing which actually has valves inside, and the railings do have some different reinforcement detail. And that's about it for the roof. Now let's take a look at the bottom. Alright, so over here we have the truck and the air brake system with lines going across. We also have the bottom outlet in the middle, and these lines go across to the other side. I'd also like to point out there's this extremely small piece of text. It's hidden next to the supports. It says lift here and jack here. So I also got a second tanker. This one is the ULTX flat panel. So the difference between this one and the Procor one is that this one has ladders on the ends, which actually are pretty curvy at the top. Their text is also in yellow, and their placards are blank. As for the flat sides, apparently it's for clearance. When cars go on curves, the middle part sticks out. And it's actually the same reason why the other car, the ladder's like 3/4 of the way there, because if you put it in the middle part sticks out the most on curves and it's gonna hit something. So they did gain some inches. Also, the railings on top are symmetrical, and they call it the crash box. Then on the edge we have some railings, some see-through etched metal walkways, can't see the pillars underneath, and more around this cap, and we have the reporting mark. And on the other side of the car we have the DOT specification, and UTLX is the Union Tank Car Company, also known as the Tank Car People. And here's how it looks like on the B end. And I just noticed the railing on top is actually asymmetrical. They also added a stencil on the truck, which is not present on Procor. And here's a look at the bottom. It's pretty much the exact same thing. It's just this one doesn't have anything around the bottom outlet valve. So now let's compare it to my ScaleTrains tank car, which transports crude oil, which is refined to make LPG that's in the Athearn. Now on the ends, they both have double shelf couplers, which is used when they're transporting hazardous materials. And you can see that Athearn's coupler shelf is much bigger than ScaleTrains, and if you look at the wheels, they actually have different bearing cap designs. The ScaleTrains ones are blue and they have this extruded shape, while the Athearn one is inward and there's like a triangular wall. But it is more common to have the extruded version of it, which I think they install in the factory, but sometimes they do replace individual axles. The ScaleTrains also has the AEI tag, which is required on all rolling stock, but it seems like Athearn did not add that detail. And of course in car length, the LPG is much longer. Also, the crude oil tank car has a manway to access the inside, which is not present on pressurized tank cars. So yeah, that's about it. Now let's go run some trains. So for my final thoughts, the Athearn Genesis Ferromex SD70ACe. As usual, it's a pretty realistically detailed model. It runs pretty great, and I especially like the new Ferromex zebra scheme. It really stands out with the stripes. And finally, we have a locomotive from Mexico, which also can be seen in the US. And I like that Athearn finally added the white line detail in the cab. Now, it was the first time the MU cables didn't come already attached, which is good if you want to customize it. It's fairly easy to put it in the hole. Now, it's not perfect. Some of the fuel tank printing came smudged on one side, and there's a little bit of white paint on the wheel in the truck, and the engineer side windshield wipers are floating, but these are minor issues. Now for the LPG tank cars, they look great with their thin railing, legible printing, hazmat placards, double shell couplers, etched metal walkways, and it rolls pretty well. Pretty interesting that they have different variations. Now I did have some issues with the Procor tank car. For the first time ever, the bearing caps came off in the packaging. I did manage to fix that. You can watch the end of the video if you're interested in that. Also, it had some warping in a bar. And in the UTLX car, there was some glue residue on the grab irons. Also, a prototypical issue is that the bearing caps is not the correct style for the car. But overall, I think these are a great addition for an HO scale freight train. You're probably going to see this on the railroad. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, hit the like button, leave a comment of your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. So when I unboxed this tank car, the rotating bearing caps of this axle, it just came off, like both of them, which is the first time this happened to me. So I looked up online, it says generally they're applied with a friction fit, which I did add the caps on both sides. However, when I tried to put it back on the bogie, it would just pop off. So then I thought maybe it's not tight enough, so I tried pushing it really hard, which it does stay on. However, when I put it back on the bogie, the wheels would not really roll well. So it turns out for these bearing caps, you do need a certain amount of clearance between the sides and the wheel, which there has to be some wiggle room. So next I tried using some glue, just put a little tad bit on the end, keep the caps on. And then I added the truck, so now it actually stays on, and make sure the axles are rolling freely as it dries. And as you can see, the rotating bearing caps are successfully attached.